Man, if I was going out right now today and I was going to set up a facility, this would be my ideal setup and how I would run things. We're giving you the exact playbook of what we would utilize right now today in our tech stack. We're talking website, property management systems, systems from attracting tenants to going through the sales process to managing phone systems, everything, the gates, getting systems that talk to each other. It's literally the step-by-step outline of exactly how we'd set up a facility. So I'm super excited and happy to be able to share this with everybody.
We get this question all the time, like, what tech stack should I use for my facility? Like, that's literally what we go through today. We get very granular on each thing, like Connor said, giving you specific examples. So whether you're new to the industry, just getting in, or if you're already an owner operator, you can hear, the tech stack that we've used throughout the years on the Cedar side, and how you might be able to use that for your business today. So excited to dive into this.
Welcome, everybody, to the Self-Storage Income Podcast. You got me and George hanging out today talking something really, really important, man. I'm excited to dive into today's topic because this is all the talk these days as far as, how do we set our facilities up for success? What are the best ways, the best tools, those different things? Because so much has changed, man, over the past 5 years, even 10 years, even. It's crazy to see the changes, and it's only going to continue to go faster. But dude, before we jump into that, George, how the heck you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. I'm excited to be here, excited to talk on this. And, you're right. Like, technology in all industries is changing like crazy, and self-storage is a part of that. So excited to dive into this and, talk about how things have evolved in the past few years with storage and where we see it going.
I think there's so many industries out there that are focused on this stuff right now, and it's smart to be focused on these things because you're going to have to stay relevant. You're going to have to compete, whether it's on the expense side of things or it's user experience. People have these expectations when they're going to use services and purchase products and goods and all these things. And the storage industry is no different, man. So setting the stage here, what are those keys to operating in today's world that you're going to need? Obviously the first one, and you've got a lot of experience with this, is that online presence, man, is huge.
Yeah, for sure. I think that when we talk about automation and storage, it's really the majority of it's based around your acquisition process. So how are you acquiring customers? Like, there's still a lot on the back end at the facility level that can't be automated. That's continuing to change, but like, your move out, your maintenance, your lock checks, all of that, a lot of that still involves a person on site doing it. But on the front end of acquiring the customer, you're trying to automate as much as that you can, all the way now to even having like AI callers picking up the phone and everything, totally changing how we connect with customers. But making sure your site can be easily found online, like, we've probably said this like 5,000 times on the podcast throughout the years, but it's always going to continue to be important. Like, I was just on a deal analysis call an hour ago with our community, and we're looking at deals that people are underwriting that don't have a website, and other ones that aren't listed on Google. And so it's like, it's a very real thing that there are still facilities out there that you can't easily find online. And if you're out buying, that's a value add opportunity for you. And if you are operating your facility, that's like the bare minimum that you need to be doing, is making sure you have a website and are listed on Google.
Pro tip, man, you're looking at markets and doing deal analysis, like, get boots on the ground, dude. Like, go and make sure that you're not missing facilities, because sometimes even those platforms that aggregate data that can be great miss some of those facilities that don't have an online presence, because if they're not there, there's nothing to aggregate.
Yeah, that literally happened on the call. We had a data aggregator up, and then we had just Google Maps up, and those tools are great. Like, we love Tracked IQ, that like, they're amazing and it can speed up time. But like, you got to be able to have your actual site as well, because it wasn't even listed on Google. You could just see that it was like, we joke it's either a storage facility or a chicken coop, and you could just see the rectangular buildings not listed on Google. But like, some of those facilities are, they're still impacting the supply and demand of the market. Like, there's still a business there. And like, honestly, a lot of the times they're full because it's someone who's owned it forever and they have an increased rent, so it's not optimized, but it's still like, there's still customers utilizing it. So you want to make sure that you see the full picture of what's going on in that market, and not just what you see on a simple storage aggregator tool.
Great side note, pro tip. Make sure you guys write that down. The online presence is big, man, and that's usually one of the things that I talk to people about first, especially when they're acquiring a facility and they're like, "Man, we talk about the value add strategy. Like, I want to increase occupancy, and I want to, maybe I'm going to lose some tenants because I'm making some changes, and they actually have to pay their bills now, and they don't like that." So there's a lot of those things that are really key to not only finding those customers, but allowing them to find you, pushing them through your sales funnel, making sure that that process is smooth for them to find you, to go to your website, to move in, get whatever information that they want. Something else actually that I like to touch on too, now that I'm thinking about it, is the online market share, essentially. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people talk about or think about, but Lance Watkins, amazing dude's been in the industry for a long time and self-storage. He's talked about this at length in the past, and that's what's inspired him to, be a part of all the things that he's been a part of and starting tech companies and all that stuff and some of that. But it's just so important to look at, like, what is your online market share? Like, how are you commanding that, especially if you're in areas where you have some privately held but very professionally managed facilities or portfolios, or even areas where you have REITs coming in, which I think will be more and more popular as we move into the future with automation and technology. So having that online presence is huge, having that market share, and on top of that, you have that intellectual property and value side of things too for yourself and your business. All of that, really, really important things to have. The other side of the coin here is like making sure that all of that actually communicates and works with all your other systems. Like, cool, you've got your website, but how does that connect to your gate
Yeah.
and get somebody a code so they can move in and they're not calling you at 2 a.m. because they decided to move in at 2 a.m. or whatever.
Well, so with the market share, actually, like what I love about that is like there you can break that down into layers. So like yes, there's like, okay, how many other storage facilities are in my market, and what is your overall market share? Say you're 1 in 10 storage facilities, but then that you could break that down by product, and so it's like there might be 10 other
Mhm.
facilities, but maybe you're the only place that has 10 by 25s, and so you have a monopoly on that product size. And so it's like being able to pay attention to, you go and look at your competition and you have 10 by 25s and they're all full. So it's like, there's demand there and there's no one else that, like, if you increase rates, they can't go anywhere else. And so that's really being able to look at like what is the market share overall? What is the, not all operators are created equal. Like you said, having an extra space or a sophisticated private operator, like that's different than 10 mom and pops next door. And then yeah, on an individual unit size level as well too. What does that look like?
No, super smart stuff, man. I mean, that's getting into all the nitty-gritty details of like making sure you're looking at like competitors and product offerings comparative to your facility and how you're positioning those things online, like all really, really important things. But I think one of the big hurdles for people is this like connectivity piece
Yeah.
and understanding like, okay, man, my gate operating system is this, my website is like hosted and based on this thing, and then I've got my management system over here, and then I've got like this other tool that I'm using for my accounting, like all these different elements and pieces to it. And then that's just been a common question that comes up over and over and over again, as far as like how do we connect all these things and what platform should we be using. So but we'll touch on some of this stuff today for you guys, which I'm excited because we're going to give you guys exactly how we would set up a facility right now today and what tools we would connect and how these things would work together and give you really just the playbook to go and do it. So you don't have to figure it out. There's so many systems out there that work together. There's so many that don't. And, all the different product offerings and pricing and all these things are different. So really want to come in here and give you guys, a cheat sheet to go in and do that. Let's talk like remote capabilities we've got on our list here. There's a lot of things that you're going to have to figure out from a remote operations standpoint because, love it or hate it, that is where the industry is going and has been going for a while. Going back to not only allowing yourself to compete from a expense standpoint, like staying competitive in the market with your rates and all of that and being able to survive, but also from that user expectation. Like I don't know that there's a lot of people that are going to storage facilities that want to spend 20 minutes in the office signing paperwork to lease a storage unit when they can just go online, rent a unit, get a gate code, move in 5 minutes at the most, right? So I think it's really, really important that we start looking at these remote operations capabilities, talking move-ins, move-outs as much as possible. Like George, you'd alluded to, like move-outs, you're going to have somebody come in and make sure that units are clean. Even if you're getting photos or these different things of, from tenants that have moved out, like you're going to need boots on the ground to confirm that things are actually what they're supposed to be. Like again, we've talked about this, gate access systems, cameras, all these things, signage, like you really need to start looking at all of these different elements and try to achieve as much remote operation capability as you can.
Yeah, for sure, and it's really non-negotiable at this point, like, even if you're 20 minutes from your facility and you're like, "I'm gonna self-manage this," like, your technology has to be an aspect of it. It doesn't mean you have to have every single bell and whistle out there, but you need to be able to have some type of remote management where you can, not be there for a few days or not have an employee there. And this is even happening on like larger facilities. Like it used to be, when AJ would talk about this, it's like, hey, if you're a small facility, you can't have somebody on site, and if you get to a certain size, you have to have employees there. That still may be true. You still may have, on-site employees. Like I know we had Ben on the podcast a couple weeks ago now, and he talked about how for some facilities he doesn't have someone on site, and for some he does, and that's why they pair storage with their moving company or U-Haul, so that way they can justify having someone there. But it's still you're condensing it. And so instead of having someone there, say 40 hours a week, maybe it's down to 30 or 25 hours a week, and you're trying to really dial in that expense there. Or, at other massive facilities that AJ's had, it was like we had 3 full-time employees and then they cut it down to 1. So
Mhm.
it's still, even on the larger scale, technology and automation is still a key aspect of it, and it's only going to continue to be more ingrained into the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And that spoken wheel model, like you're talking about, the consolidation of, instead of having one person at every facility, it's like you've got one person that kind of roves around. Maybe they've got that centralized hub, and then they've got the satellite facilities that they travel around to a couple times a week, kind of a deal. And definitely seeing a lot more of that going on in the industry. And it's smart. Again, it's like, man, if you can reduce your expenses, like if you can take your expense ratio from 45 to 35, like that's money, dude.
Yeah.
Um, Not to say that's like a guarantee or any, like those aren't real numbers. Like by all means, every facility is different, but it really does actually have a huge potential to reduce your operating expenses, and obviously not having somebody there all the time. Payroll is huge for most people. So one of the larger expenses.
That's the benefit too of being able to buy those, portfolios, even a portfolio of small facilities. We just had Nate in the inner circle who does his one-on-one calls with you. He just bought 7 facilities.
Yep.
And a lot of those, like if you were to just underwrote each individual facility on its own, it probably wouldn't have made sense. But the fact that he was able to have 4 in one market and 3 in another, he has the economies of scale where you have one person managing those things and you're diverting your expenses. So that way it's not just like buying one property that has this certain cash flow to it. You can, spread it out. So that can happen on small deals or large deals as well. So yeah, 100%. It's that when you have that, centralized location with the satellites, as you were saying, it can really change how you operate.
Yeah, and one of the really key elements here too in being able to achieve that roving individual is making sure that you've got systems set up at each facility in a way that aggregates it either to one person or one solution.
Mhm.
One of those things is like the phone system, right? That's one of those really important pieces that you have figured out on, like building the phone tree, routing calls, or having some kind of system put in place that allows you to, take those phone calls if you need to, and also filters calls. Like, you don't want to figure out how to take more phone calls. I'm going to keep pounding this drum, dude. Like, don't figure out how to take more calls. Like, figure out how to allow your customers to self-serve. If they've got questions, if they want to make payments, if they've got problems, like figure out every possible solution that you can to allow your tenants and your customers to solve the problem for themselves. And then if, worst case scenario, they have the ability to connect with you in some way through all the audits throughout all the years that we did. We found a huge majority of the calls, like early on, as we were, organizing our infrastructure and growing. It was apparent that we were getting a ton of calls. A vast majority of the calls that we were getting were easily self-service calls.
Yeah.
It was what are the gate hours? When's the bill due? Do you take checks? Do you this or that? Like just all the random things that it's like, there's no reason why we should be trying to figure out how to take more of these.
Well, then too, if you're stuck on the phone, like those are maintenance calls, or like they're people are already paying you that you're fulfilling what their duties really, but like you're missing out on someone else who might be calling who actually is a sales call. And so
Mhm.
like if you're stuck on the phones with all of those, management tasks that, like you said, could be automated on a dial system, like it's taking away from revenue opportunities from because you're not trying to get to like zero phone calls. Like some people, they'll want to talk to someone before they rent a unit, and you want to make sure your time and attention is available for those situations, as opposed to being like, I forgot my code, or like, how do I log into my portal? Like those are the things you don't want to be stuck on the phone with.
It comes down to, again, staying competitive, allowing people to self-serve. Like you don't want to create unnecessary work, to steal one of our mottos from self-storage income. Like don't create unnecessary stuff. Don't make work to do that you don't need to be doing. Be productive as possible. You owe it to yourself and your facility and your customers to be as productive and great as possible. And that's what a lot of this stuff is going to help achieve. We kind of already talked about this too, man. Another big thing is tracking your competition.
Yeah.
And we talked about a data aggregator here a little bit, but that's another thing is like, man, are you gonna, especially at scale, you're gonna just go to every single facility's website and bring up every single unit, or you're gonna call every single one of them, or you're gonna walk into every single one of them and track exactly what they're doing with their rates every day? Like, no, like you just can't. So tracking competition, there's a lot of tools out there. We're going to share one with you guys today, but man, it's super important because stuff can change so fast, huh?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, we love to use Tract IQ for being able to look at immediate rates for it. There's others out there. Tract IQ also just released their occupancy update as well too, where you can see in real time what the actual demand is at some of these facilities. And even still, it's like a lot of this is you want to be doing manual as well too. Like if you're in a small market and there's five other facilities, it's not going to take you long to weekly or even daily sometimes, if you got a team doing it, just quickly look what are the rates going on. Like you want to be able to see if your competitor down the street is running a promotion. Like those are very, very important things to pay attention to, because if you think storage is passive, this is where that really comes into play. If you're not paying attention to your rates, you're gonna fall behind very quickly in your market. And then you can also, a big thing that we've been working on, AJ's been super excited about, is his revenue management company now, Metrics. So that's a way that you can really see like how much juice is there to squeeze on my units and my customers that I have. So like what we look at, like stress tests of like what would happen at a 5%, 10%, 15% rental increase. Because again, it's not about filling your units, it's about driving revenue. And so being able to optimize the income, even if it means a few people moving out, that's the game that we're playing here. And so AJ talks about used to doing all this by spreadsheets and a lot of guesswork, and now that's where technology is coming in to be able to, add these algorithms into play to be more sophisticated in our growth.
Even, tracking new developments, seeing some of those pop up, that kind of stuff, really, really important to keep an eye on those things because things can change fast, man. Somebody develops a new facility and you had no idea, and it's, in your 3 mile radius, and they just increase the supply on the market 50%. And suddenly you're like, why am I getting all these move outs? And why is everybody saying my rates are too high? And it's like, oh, well, you've got a huge, amazing new facility down the road. And, they're just jacking street rates down to start, driving occupancy.
Yeah.
So
And that's why it's huge too. Like the competitor tracking comes in when you're buying, and it doesn't stop once you own and you're operating as well too. And so like especially like that's a big thing that can easily, you look at this, you're looking at a facility to buy, and you look at the market and you see like, oh, it has a great square foot per capita. But if you're not looking at potential incoming developments, like you just said, you can all of a sudden increase your supply by 50%. Totally changes the fundamentals of that market that you're looking in. So, and that doesn't stop too once you own it. And so that's why like when you can get like the true great opportunities for a market is when you find those development moratoriums where it's like there's no storage allowed to be built here beyond. So then it's like that's when you have the confidence of like, sweet, like this supply is what it is. We're not having to worry about new developments anytime soon. So can't always find that, but those are like the nuances to look for to be able to see what you're dealing with in a market.
One of the things to remember though too is that not every facility, I think you've brought up a really great point here, is going to be able to have all the whiz bang cool technology tools. Like what are some things that you can think of that maybe might not make sense for some facilities from a automation technology standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that, Cedar and AJ and our team do in the underwriting is we look to do the keyless entry. So Noki is the system that we use. And basically that allows you to, take your phone and you go and scan it up to the unit and let you in, which is awesome. And it's like a great way to have that keyless entry. You can lock it remotely. Even then it's like you can almost do your lock checks without a person there because you can use cameras to go and look. And if you can unlock it and lock it right there, or if a tenant can't get in, you can unlock it for them. Having said that, if you're looking at a small facility, there's a fixed cost to go in and take a 50 unit building and retrofit it to Noki. And so if you can't make that retrofit work and increase your rates and occupancy enough to a point where it pays for it and then generates a profit for you, like you're just paying for fancy bells and whistles that isn't going to lead to an ultimately increasing the money in your pocket. And so that's where you really want to be able to factor that into your underwriting, being like, okay, what is it going to cost to put in this cool technology that I would love to have, and does it actually pay for it in the long run? So
Mhm.
that's one like really concrete example, because like not every facility is going to make sense for keyless automation. They are getting cheaper and more affordable options to do it, but it's got to be a financial decision, not just like I want the newest iPhone type mindset.
With that, man, we've covered a ton of ground as far as like setting the stage here of like all these different elements of remote operations and this ideal tech stack. I wanted to make sure that we covered today, like, man, if I was going out right now today and I was going to set up a facility, like this would be my ideal setup and how I would run things. So, first and foremost, we want to talk. There's these different elements, and we can kind of explain some of these as we go through, because I think, especially for somebody starting out, you might not realize like your property management system is actually different from like your website. Like it's
Mhm.
a totally different piece. So different pieces that we're going to hit on right here are going to be your property management software. We're going to be talking website. We're going to be talking phones, talking brand, gate systems and keypad systems. We're looking at lien processing systems because it's not a matter of if, it's when somebody's not paying their bill, like going through that process. And we're going to be looking at some competitor tracking as it relates to some of these things we talked about, rate management and promotions and some of these other things that people are doing, new developments, some of that. Let's dive into this first one, man. Management software, hands down, I would be going to and utilizing Tenant Inc.'s Hummingbird platform for the operations system.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we're obviously partial to Tenant. Like we've worked with them for a long time. AJ's on the board. The great thing about them is they have a whole all-encompassing ecosystem. So like Connor was saying earlier, like making sure that not that you just have the latest technology, but they all work together. And so yeah, Tenant is obviously like we're gonna have that throughout our tech stack. That's what we use. So like that's what we work with, and it's what makes sense. There's of course other options out there, but I think the biggest thing is like making sure that they are helpful to you and to each other, and that you're not working in isolated technologies, because that no matter what you use, if that's the end result, it's gonna just create more work for you. But on the management software side, like really what that's really your database of like, okay, these are your customers. Like that's how you get your rent roll and your management summary and your occupancy report and everything that you're going to be able to like see how is my business doing. When you don't have that, you're literally like your rent roll is a spreadsheet or a piece of paper. And so like what it allows you to do is, have these simplified documents, or and then your online portal where you can see what's going on. So you can check to see like, okay, what's my occupancy, and then what's my occupancy by unit type. Like these are the types of things that you should be checking weekly and really daily to see like what's going on and changing here. How many of my tenants are delinquent? It's the first of the month. How many didn't pay? How many are not on auto pay? Being able to measure all those things in a way that is digestible, and you not having to go and reinvent the wheel by building your own software to track your facility.
Definitely check out the Hummingbird platform through Tenant Inc. for your property management software. See what all they got there. Um, next up, we've got the website. This is George's happy place, or used to be. I mean, because you came from that development background, right?
Yeah, for sure, and not in storage at all, just web design in general. And so I think that for this, like when you look at your storage facility, this is your front end. It's almost like your business card today. It's your customer's first experience of what their presence that they see of your site. The majority of people today are renting online. They're not driving to your facility to come, like Connor said, walk in and spend 20 minutes in the office signing leases. Like a lot of these facilities don't even have an office anymore, and so the key thing that we look for in a storage website is simplicity. Like you don't need to have the all these crazy videos or animations or anything like that. It's just like, is it easy to rent a unit? Is it clear? And is it as straight to the point as possible? I think the holy grail that we would love to get to is Amazon, where it's like, click one button and buy now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unfortunately with storage, there's just like between signing the lease document or like updating your license or opting into tenant insurance, it's just like there's still like a few clicks and inputs that you got to go through. But you want it to be very simple to be like, here's my facility, here's what we have to offer, here's our unit types, here's what's available. Obviously, you want to be able to collect payment. That's the biggest thing. And then, ideally, you can get those people onto auto pay, onto the insurance, and then from there you're sending out the emails and instructions so how they get to their unit from there. It's like doing all of that without having to talk to somebody. And then the on the back end, that everything that happens should then filter right in to your management software. And so that, again, that's where the tenant integration is really nice, and there's others out there that do it, but you want to make sure your website and your management software are talking, so that way when someone rents a unit, it then goes into your management portal and says, hey, this unit is no longer available. So that way you're not, running into three people renting the same unit, and then you get a ton of issues to deal with.
I would much rather have like these experts that have done this stuff for years, but then also the people that, you know, there's hundreds of people in facilities utilizing the same platform,
Right.
and they're using those economies of scale, and they're using that data to make the websites better, to make the process smoother, to drive conversions, all of that, to get those move-ins. It's really, really awesome to have. And so if I was going out right now today, I'd be plugging in my Hummingbird. And then next up for my website, I'd be plugging in the Mariposa, the Tenant Inc. Mariposa platform. Again, both of these things are talking to each other seamlessly. It's all Tenant Inc. It's all on the same platform. Still got your one point of contact for all the things. So go to the experts. This is exactly what I would do.
For sure. All right. So next on our list, we got the phone. So I think this has been one that's changed a ton throughout the years. So I mean, there's obviously in the beginning, there's you just got to pick up the phone yourself. Then I think the next evolution that we saw for storage was call centers. So being able to leverage a third party like XPS Solutions is one that comes to mind, where it's like you can have a team of people who will answer the phones for you, which especially gets great when you are able to, you're scaling and you have, three, four, five facilities. You don't want to build your own team of people answering the phones. You work with a call center. There's trade-offs to this. So like you won't necessarily get the like customized service that you want, which I know like on the Cedar side, that's why it ultimately ended up building their own in-house team. So that way you can, be routing those calls. Someone calls facility A, but that's full, but facility B up the street is, got something available. You want to be able to do that cross-selling, upselling, anything that you need. But yeah, like the phones are going to be a huge piece to this. And then Connor, I know too, like we just had the podcast recently with Tyler talking about AI call centers and how that's totally changing things that are happening in the industry now.
If it was me right now today and I was going and getting a facility closed on and I was setting up all the systems, it would be a no-brainer to me to plug in the Patchwork Labs AI phone system and get that going from day one. Because again, I don't want to be taking a ton of calls for all these different random things. I don't want to have to go and hire a bunch of people. And two, yeah, call centers can and have been a great tool to utilize in the past, and to help filter calls and some of that. But at scale, they do become really, really expensive. They're not cheap to utilize. And so I would certainly be looking at and plugging in the Patchwork Labs solution on the phone system side. You guys will have to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't, with Tyler, that talks about their current capabilities, where they're at with this phone system. Bunch of guys that are building this specifically for self-storage. It's not just some random AI phone system or something. It's literally built for the self-storage industry. And again, these guys own and run storage facilities. They're not just some random tech company. Like, these guys are actually going out there and buying facilities in a really big way. Listen to that episode, hear where things are at and where they're going, and I think it's just going to continue to look like magic to us and blow us away every time we look at some of this new stuff coming out. And this is just in the past. Again, you're talking about this company coming out in the past, year and a half, 2 years, and we're here already to this point where the capabilities are again like magic. It's like unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, like, I think the best call centers are probably going to pivot and, or not pivot, but innovate and add some type of AI feature to what they're offering. Like, I see that happening. I agree that podcast was great. Would definitely recommend listening. And it's not all about AI either. It's also about, the storage operations as well too, and Tyler's background in that. I know AJ recently has been talking about an AI that Tenant's working on. So I think you're going to find more and more solutions to this coming to it. And so like that's going to be the thing. Like what we're trying to do today is like giving you guys options that we've seen that do well in this industry, and then ultimately like you guys as operators can get to go out and pick. And that competition is a good thing for that. That there's more things out there. On the AI side too, I think that from a consumer level, a customer level, I think it's still new enough that if you call a facility and AI answers, I think people are more like, oh, this is cool. Like people aren't necessarily rejecting it as opposed to like an automated system. I think so many people are sick of that. But
Yeah.
I think the AI thing, I feel like that's been pretty well accepted so far, just because of how new it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And in talking to Tyler, he's like, yeah, I think about 80% of the people that call in don't even know that they're not talking to a person.
Mm.
Like, they don't even realize it, which is crazy to think. But that's how advanced this stuff is. It's not like press one to do this. Like, please repeat the thing. I didn't catch that.
Yeah,
Like,
you're
it's
having a
it's not like
conversation.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you're talking to a person. Anyways, no, good stuff there. Patchwork Labs, phone systems, great. The next thing is branding, dude. That's another big piece of the puzzle that can be such a huge cost and such a huge time suck, especially when you're bringing on facilities, you're trying to grow and you're trying to scale. You want a brand that you can grow and scale with, that you don't have to sit there and try to run separate brands or facilities on, whatever. Like, you want to consolidate branding. You want that for the long term. And if I was going to go out right now today, I would 100% be branding my facility store local. And there's a couple reasons for that. So I don't have to even think about it. Like, I don't have to think about names or any of this crazy stuff. Like, I've got the store local brand name, I've got my signage, I've got everything I need to go and get things done. But the other thing with Store Local being what it is, it's a company of Tenant Inc. as well. So Store Local and Tenant Inc. They had merged, I would say probably a couple of years ago now, but Store Local was a brainchild of Lance Watkins, AJ, and these guys that came together and realized that as the self-storage industry continued to consolidate, which means you've got more of these big private owners and operators and REITs going out there and buying up facilities and consolidating them under one brand, they realized it was going to be harder and harder for private owners to compete with those individuals. They wouldn't have, again, that online market share. They wouldn't have the web presence. They wouldn't have the pull with contractors and service providers and some of these things. They just wouldn't have the economies of scale. And so they said, hey, we need some kind of co-op to bring private owners together. And that's where Store Local came from. And so if it was me, I would absolutely want to go and be a part of something like that, be a part of a co-op, have a network of resources at my fingertips to be able to compete not only now but in the future as things get more and more competitive and consolidated. I would want to have those economies of scale personally.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, like when other things that you can leverage with that is like you are using storelocal.com. So like you have the domain authority. We saw
Yep.
in our community, Colin just bought his first facility, and he's all in on store local. And so it's like it's such just like one less thing to think about, to have to be able to just like, here's your branding, here's your website, all of this is all in one for you, that you can just again, not reinventing the wheel, that you're just leveraging what's already there. Like that domain authority is huge. Like especially if you're in a market with REITs, then you're having to deal with like people searching self storage near me. Like if you're not popping up on that first page of Google, they're not going to find you. So it's super important to be able to have that. One thing I will say is that, people will ask like, well, what if I want to build my own brand? Like what if I don't want to just like opt into someone else's? Like yeah, you absolutely can build your own brand, and there is obviously strengths to that, especially when you think of that enterprise value. And some of our, Ben, for example, or Alex is another person in our community who's got a strong portfolio. Like they ultimately build their own brands, and it does pay off. But it's like going into with that mindset that when you buy your first facility, your brand is not going to be it's going to be something you have to work on. You're not just going to start a brand and all of a sudden that's the what people think of when they think of storage in your town. So it can be great, but that's you gotta think about what are you trying to get into this industry, and how are you going to go about it. So using something like Store Local is like leveraging what's already been built, as opposed to the extra time and energy it will take to go out and build your own brand, which can pay off in the long run, but it's going to take time, work, and effort to make that happen.
Next up, man, and making sure, again, this is a super, super important one, is the gate systems, keypad operating systems, that kind of stuff is really, really important. Again, that it makes sure that it connects to everything that you're utilizing, your website, property management system, all of this stuff. It's all got to talk together. And I would 100% be utilizing the no key, the Janus no key keypads and gate operating system for my facility. That's what I would do. And this is something that I don't think a lot of people realize or consider, but Nokia is known for remote access systems. Again, like George was talking about earlier, with you go up to your facility or your unit at the facility, and you can access the gate, you can access your unit, all of this stuff with your phone. It's all Bluetooth enabled, all that stuff. It's really cool technology and works really well. But if you, let's say, like that example earlier, maybe your facility is smaller and it doesn't actually make sense to go and retrofit all of these doors at this facility, all the units, with this no key technology, with this no key latch that you can put on. If that doesn't make sense, you could still use a gate keypad from no key. You don't have to, do everything no key. You could legit just do the front entry keypad, or and the exit keypad if there is one, or whatever, and that's it. You don't have to outfit the entire facility with it. So regardless of what I was doing with the units at the facility, I would 100% go ahead and put the no key keypads and gate system in place.
Yeah, it's just a easy value add to explain to your customers as well too. You're creating a safer experience for them, protecting their stuff, just making the security overall just a way better experience for them. So yeah, I think with that, it's really become something that it's just so simple to be able to include in your value add strategy. There's obviously an upfront cost to it, but then it totally changes just the look and feel of your facility to be able to do that.
Hmm.
If you're going to do the full Noki, or keyless entry, really what it's done for us is it's shifted our buy box to be like, we want to have the simplicity of having Noki systems. And so we're going to look for facilities at a size where it either already has it or can be retrofitted to do that. But that's just based off of like, the size that Cedar has gotten to, where it's like those are the facilities that are, like ideal targets for us, because it does make the operations easy, not having to deal with like, the manual locks to it. But that's not going to be the case for everyone. That's not to say that it's wrong to want to buy a facility that doesn't utilize Noki. It's just, again, like having those parameters in place with your buy box of like, this is what makes the most sense based on how I want to operate.
Next up, the not so fun side of things, the lean processing. This is one that you do not want to mess up. It's a really, really important one that you make sure that every single I is dotted, every T is crossed. Like, this is people's personal property, and going through the lean process is not a small thing. So again, it's not like evicting somebody out of a home, but there is a legal process and procedure that has to be followed. And me personally, again, going to automation, like trying to offload as much of this stuff from relying on me as possible. I would be using AI Lean for my lean processing. And there's some other functions to AI Lean and stuff that you guys can look into. But if it was me and I was plugging in a facility right now today, I'd be calling AI Lean and getting them set up to be able to process the liens. You can do it on your own. It's just about learning the process and understanding what you can and can't do. So maybe even if you started with AI Lean and decided, hey, actually I could do it on my own and save some money, or maybe my wife or my mother-in-law, father-in-law, whatever, can kind of do this piece of the business, like, or I could just hire somebody for it if you're, to that point. But it made a lot of sense for us, even when we were at when I was at Cedar Creek, and so I would definitely consider plugging that one in for sure.
Yeah, I think it's a great point too of working with a third party like that to learn. Even if the end goal that you want is to end up doing it yourself, you can just expedite your learning process by going with a service provider like that. Sarah on our team loves AI Lean. She talks about them all the time and how great they are to make things easier because the auction process is or the lean process is not fun. Like it's time consuming. You really want to do it right. It's not something that you are really doing to make a profit from. It's more to be able to get the unit available for the next customer and be done with that. So I think it's something that rather than, becoming an expert in that aspect, I would rather work with somebody who knows what they're doing and can do it more efficiently, pay them to do it more quickly, and then be able to focus on getting the next customers in for you. Another piece that comes into this too is like as you start going and if you own facilities across multiple states, the laws change. And so then it's like if you own, in three different states, you have three different laws, and that's just like time consuming to do. Whereas if you work with a company like AI Lean who works in all 50 states, makes your life way easier where you don't have to become well versed in all of that.
That's what I would do. And then we kind of touched on this a little bit on the competitor tracking side. I know you mentioned Tracked IQ, you mentioned now metrics. Something else, we wanted to throw in here as well was Veritex Solutions from like a rate management standpoint. So if it was me right now today, I was going to go out and look at my competitors in the market. I would want to be using Tracked IQ. And looking and seeing what's out there. I'd want to be using now metrics, like George had talked about. There's some stuff coming out there that is going to allow people to look at real-time occupancies of certain facilities and some of those different things, which is really a game changer for the storage industry. That's never been done before, and that's a huge thing to say. And then from the rate management side, that competitor tracking and even automating some of this decision making as far as rate management goes. Veritex Solutions, great resource for you to be able to put in some parameters, get some suggestions. You can put in your like competitors in there and map unit sizes and rates, and it gives you all kinds of great information to work from as far as where your suggested rate increases should be or not. So these are the tools that I'd be using and cross-referencing right now today.
These things are just meant to make your life easier, so you're not spending all this manual time doing it. We use Veritech for a long time. If you're buying a small facility and just one small property, it might not make sense to utilize every single service for all three of these, or they can add up if you're paying these monthly subscriptions. So it might not always make sense, but I think for you guys, like listening to this episode should be something that it's like there's a lot of options out there for technology. You don't have to use all of them at once. But it's important to know that like if we would have done this same podcast episode 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it's probably already did. There's probably the same exact topic, but 2 or 3 years ago. Like it's different today and it'll be different next year and the year after. Like storage continues to evolve as technology does. Like storage is very heavily leans on the innovation of technology. Like at the end of the day, it's a very simple business model. It's like, you rent a space that people can store their stuff, but there's so much nuance in how you can manage these things. And so even if you're not going to use every single thing that we talked about, I think it's important to know like what a tech stack is and what you need in yours, and then also what options are out there and what continues to change because it changes really fast. And if you're not paying attention to how it changes, it can totally change what you have a good cash flowing property today, and then you get complacent, and then things change very quickly.
Yep, exactly right. Exactly right. You don't want to be the dinosaur going extinct, man.
Yeah.
With that, you guys check out the show notes. You guys will see notes from everything we talked about today. Make sure you check those out. And please, if you got value from this episode, leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Helps us out a ton. Even if it's just giving us the stars or giving us the, one word like great, whatever. Huge help for us. Please leave those. And George, it's been awesome to hang out with you today, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Connor. Great episode. Appreciate everybody tuning in today. And yeah, if you like this, please give us a review. It helps us a ton. So thanks, everybody.
All right, we'll catch you next time, guys.